The G.I. Joe Classified line is one of my current favorites. I actually named it Toy Line of the Year in 2022, and since then, it has just continued to get better and better. The emphasis on classic versions of the characters has only made the line stronger.
But where are the vehicles?
Sure, we have the HasLab Hiss Tank and Dragonfly helicopter coming, but the original 3 3/4 inch line was built on numerous vehicles and playsets for our Joes to interact with. That is where the fans and customizers are filling the void.
Hey y'all, and welcome back to Carbon Scoring, the best place for comics history and action figures. I recently traveled to Augusta, Georgia for the annual Joe Fest, a weekend dedicated to all things G.I. Joe.
It was awesome. Sam and Tara from Hey Kids Comics hooked me up with a pass, and I even got to spend some time with Larry Hama, the writer and creator of the G.I. Joe comic series.
It was pretty cool.
Joe Fest was the biggest toy show I've ever attended.
And you know I didn't leave there empty-handed. While I may not have had enough cheddar to grab a sealed in-box Defiant, I did manage to bring home these two bad boys.
Cro-Mag Toys out of Raleigh, North Carolina had several 3D printed replicas of original Joe vehicles.
Let's start with the Skyhawk. The difference in scale is pretty remarkable.
The Skyhawk first appeared on toy shelves in 1984 with Series 3. It's a one-man vertical takeoff and landing vehicle, equipped with 2 missiles and a rotating engine. This piece is one of the most pristine in my collection, as I found it in a sealed box in my brother-in-law's closet a few years ago and applied the stickers myself. I loved this vehicle as a kid, in part because it made its first comic appearance in issue 24, when Storm Shadow rescues the captured Cobra Commander from the Joes. This custom is a perfect reinterpretation of the original. All the fine details are included, from the opening hatch to the removable missiles to the rotating engine thrusters. 3D printed plastic can come out kind of flat, so I used some Gundam markers and Sharpies to bring out the details of the sculpt and to add a little bit of weathering effect to give the model more texture. This includes significant work in the cockpit to balance out all of the green plastic found everywhere. The Skyhawk was a move towards more sci-fi vehicles in the line, but it was inexpensive, and as a vertical takeoff and landing vehicle, it was able to go on many missions with my Joes as a kid. Now, I have one to transport my classified figures around. The foundation of every kid's Cobra army in the early 1980s was the Fang copter. And let's just get this out of the way. This thing makes no sense. I mean, it would almost certainly decapitate the pilot on virtually every flight.
But who cares? It is so cool.
The original Fang came out in Series 2 in 1983 and was loaded to the brim with 4 missiles and a bomb, so much armament that it would never get off the ground in real life. There are also pegs on the struts for extra Cobra troopers to ride along, free haircut from the rotors included. Mine, like so many, is missing the red roll bar piece that goes over the top of the exhaust port in the rear.
But this bad boy is ready to provide air support to my upcoming Hiss tanks.
The 6-inch version has all the key features of the original, including the front-mounted Gatling gun and, of course, 4 removable red missiles and the bomb hidden underneath. I had some extra Cobra stickers that I was able to add to the front and to the tail to give it a touch more detail. One interesting thing about this model is that the 3D printing process didn't leave much room for the figure to sit and pilot the copter. But this was easily remedied by simply removing the boots from this Cobra Trooper figure and voila! Now he sits perfectly in the cockpit. You can't even tell.
Having purchased everything that they had at the show, I had to know if they had more. Lucky for me, back at their shop they did, starting with this perfect replica of the mass device.
When the G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero line launched in 1982, regulations prevented toy companies from producing cartoons, thinking that they were basically 30-minute advertisements. Which they were, but Hasbro and Marvel found a loophole and instead made 30-second ads for the G.I. Joe comic, like this one, which not only served to promote the comic book, but the toy line as well. But in 1983, those regulations were lifted, and Sunbow teamed with Marvel Productions to produce a 5-part miniseries titled The Mass Device. This was cause for celebration at my house, and we set our primitive VCR to record each episode, and we ended up watching them over and over. This set the stage for the future G.I. Joe cartoon. But the initial miniseries centers around the Mass Device, the MacGuffin that allows Cobra to transport matter anywhere in the world. It was fueled by 3 rare elements, so each episode was dedicated to the race between the Joes and Cobra to obtain these. It was masterful storytelling, filled with drama and character development. While the overall purpose may have been to sell toys, they crafted a compelling story. In 2008, as part of the 25th anniversary line, 5 DVD battle packs were produced, which contained the separate pieces needed to complete the Mass Device. The final set, containing the beam emitter, was particularly hard to find in stores, but they all came together to create a pretty accurate replica. One which has now been enlarged for the 6-inch scale classified series. This new model has some real heft to it, and despite being mostly black 3D printed plastic, it contains some really nice detail. I appreciate that the rare elements and the cart needed to transport them was included. It's really the final touch to bring this classic cartoon object to life.
One of the most recent figure releases was CoverGirl. She's a cool figure and all, but as a kid, I always had her piloting her vehicle, the Wolverine Tank. Thankfully, problem solved.
The original Wolverine Tank was released in 1983 Series 2, and with a 12-round missile launcher positioned directly behind the driver's head, it is certainly the leading cause of deafness in the U.S. Army. It came in at a lower price point, as it has hidden wheels instead of rolling treads, which didn't negatively impact the play value, but allowed for more kids to have access to it, something I hope Hasbro keeps in mind with potential future vehicles in the line. The Wolverine Tank has a special place in my heart, as it made its debut in the very first Joe comic I ever got, issue 16, which I just recently had signed by the legend Larry Hama at Joe Fest. The 6-inch Wolverine is an improvement in every way. First off, it's massive, certainly befitting my first tank for the classified Joes. CoverGirl fits perfectly in the pilot seat without any need for adjustment. I've added more shading and color effects to this model to bring out more of the detail in the sculpt. As a tank, I'm trying to give it more of a muddy look. Also, the missiles originally came as black plastic, so to make them more consistent with the original toy, I painted them a metallic silver. All of the little touches are included, such as the tow rope and removable shovel on the side. I added more browns to highlight the leather satchels along the front of the Wolverine, and just like we saw with the original, this model has a removable plate for additional storage. But remember how the treads were fake on that 1983 version? Not now, baby. This monster comes with actual rotating tank treads, a huge upgrade from the original.
For me, the crown jewel of these custom vehicles just happens to be my personal favorite, the original G.I. Joe Jeep, the Vamp.
The original Vamp was my first G.I. Joe toy back in 1983, so it will always hold a special place in my heart. It was one of the original vehicles in the 82 line, but mine is distinguished as an 83 model because it came with the swivel arm version of Clutch, the #1 figure on my classified want list. This toy was the perfect summation of the line, a classic Army vehicle in the form of a green Jeep, but with just enough modern sci-fi stylings as it was based off the Lamborghini Cheetah. Its ability to hold 2 figures and carry numerous other weapons with the tow hook made it an invaluable part of any kid's G.I. Joe team. And this custom 6-inch version hits all the right notes. It has that sleek, modern silhouette with the aggressive headlights and open roll bar cockpit of the original. Those knobby off-road tires show it is ready for any terrain. And like all of the other customs we've seen, it's packed with details mimicking the original, such as the machine gun mounted on the hood, the tow wrench along the front bumper, the rear rack capable of carrying 2 jerry cans, and, of course, the mounted laser gun on the rear platform. At least, I always assumed it was a laser cannon. The only real difference is the original's ability to show alternating fire, whereas the new one remains fixed. Out of all the possible vehicles I want in the classified line, the original Vamp is by far the #1 choice for me. And honestly, Hasbro's going to have to really work to improve on this custom model. So what do you think? Are these worthy additions to my classified collection, or are you waiting on official products to come out in this line? Let me know in the comments. And as always, for the best in comics history and action figures, subscribe to Carbon Scoring.